Hey guys, it's Tawny Jean from Tawny Jean Studios, and this video is going to go over the materials that I use for my ugly sketchbook. Hopefully you'll get some ideas of what to do in your sketchbook and hopefully find it helpful. So let's get started. Okay, so first thing you need obviously for an ugly sketchbook is a sketchbook. I got this as a gift. I've told people that who've asked, so I don't know where it's from, but there's lots of cool, leather bound sketchbooks online. As you can see, the paper it's not super thick. It's like a typical, I'd say it's pretty typical drawing paper, maybe a little bit thicker. So this is ink. This is marker, so it bleeds through to the other side, but and it does bleed on to the next paper too, but I don't really mind. You can put another, like a piece of paper in between. That would help. Let's see if I can find a gouache. Here's a gouache example. It holds up really well with gouache. It's not even buckling much, even compared to the ink. All my watercolor, I actually glue a piece of watercolor paper in it, just so I don't have to worry about the other side. This is the paper that I use to glue in to my ugly sketchbook. The 5x7 is the one I picked because that's the size of my sketchbook. So they're perfectly already cut out for my size sketchbook. They have all different sizes of this stuff. Even if you had to make one cut, if you have a really tiny one, or they have bigger pieces, you can get a bigger piece, or just get like a pad. It's cheaper watercolor paper. That's what I use in my sketchbook. I'm not going to use the nicer stuff in my sketchbook just because it's super expensive. This is Canson, and this is 9x12. You probably have a sketchbook that's smaller, but you could cut this in half. I mean, I would just play around with it. Don't worry if you have like Strathmore, Canson, just do what you can afford if you're just starting out, especially like you don't want to be throwing down all sorts of money when you're just figuring it out and it's just a place for play. That's why we call it the ugly sketchbook. Another paper I've used is this black watercolor paper. This is by Stonehenge and it just comes out in sheets, and I had to cut this so it would fit and it worked great. And then tracing paper. So if you saw in the sketchbook, I put tracing paper in between pages that have the looser like pastel. I just put a little piece of tracing paper in between so that things don't get too messy. Okay, so I think one of the most basic things I use in my sketchbook is my Micron pens, or one of the things I started with, and I think people were really into these and wanted to know what they are because they're amazing. As you can see, I have all different sizes in here, but they're waterproof, which is why I use them. So I don't have to worry if I mix wet media with my dry media, it won't smear. I linked the pack of these that has a set of different sizes on my Amazon storefront. I have most of the stuff in what I'm going to show you on there. Anything that is on Amazon is on my Amazon storefront, all our essentials list. So you can check that out if you're curious and kind of look through all the supplies. This one I use a lot. It's 005 and it is so tiny and I love it. And then there's this 12, which is just huge compared. So there's all different sizes. Have been using a lot lately is this Pigma brush. It's very calligraphy-esque and I really love this one. It's got some really fun qualities about it. Got this one, it's like a plastic tip instead of the felt. So I think it will hopefully be a little bit more durable on like watercolor paper or things that are a little bit tougher. So that's my little frog that holds, this was my great grandma's that she painted and I love it so much, and it holds my Micron pens. So I really like this pencil. I have these linked on my Amazon too. It's the 0.9 millimeter and it's a mechanical pencil. I never really liked mechanical pencils before, but it's really nice not to have to sharpen it. It's worked great. It's very comfortable to hold, so I love that. This tiny little eraser is amazing. It's a Mono Zero Tombow and it comes with like fillers in there, and it is so nice for like, especially when you're doing charcoal. And I've used this in my ugly sketchbook. I can show you guys. So here's an example of where I used this tiny little eraser to make all these details, all the little wisps. So fun and adds so much great detail when you're doing charcoal. On the eraser note, a kneaded eraser is great also for charcoal or anything else. If you want to do like just a lighter kind of version of what you sketched out so that the pencil is not as thick, it's really great for that. These are my favorite erasers. Here we go. So it's the General's, it's Factis for artists. I have just found these to be the best. It's a traditional gum eraser, and that's what it looks like. This is what it looks like after a while. And for charcoal, I keep my charcoal in this really expensive zip bag. So compressed charcoal is great. Look like this, and they're dense and make really nice, big, thick lines. And if you want to get, and then these like smudgy things, they help smudge and do some shading. And they're just paper. It's like rolled paper. You could also just use rolled paper, which is fun too. And then I have these charcoal pencils, and I love these. I actually sharpen them with an X-Acto knife to get a longer revealed tip here. So you can do kind of more of a side shading. They're really great, and they come in different softness and different sizes. And that comes in a pack, and those are General's brand as well. Oilsticks, these are so fun, but they are really big. And that's my only problem with them, even though I like using them. But it's an oil paint in a stick. So this was done in the oil paint, the oil stick, as was this. I would probably enjoy them on a bigger sketchbook or bigger page than that. I might enjoy it more, but they are really fun to use and fun to play with. And I got those on Amazon. We go over tape actually before we get into pastels. This is my favorite. It's the Scotch Delicate Surface Tape. I have talked about how I don't love that it's purple, but it is what it is. And then I found this Proartist tape. I like this. It's Pro Tapes is the brand. These are linked on my Amazon account as well. I like the thinness of this. I have one that's also like half this size, and it's low tack. It does pull up some paper sometimes, so you just have to be mindful of that. The purple one is the most consistently, like, doesn't pull up all the paper. I have some oil pastels. This is the Sennelier, and this is a more expensive brand, but I got this as a gift, so this is what I have. But they are really beautiful, rich colors, creamy, oily, kind of sticky vibe compared to a soft pastel, which I'll show in a second. These are great. They're super fun to mess around with. They're a little harder to blend than a soft pastel, but it's really fun to play around with, and they have like a different texture. So for the soft pastels, I have this landscape set of the Sennelier. It's 30, and these are like half sticks. I'll show you what they look like. So this is what they look like. They usually come in a stick twice the size, but this is obviously cheaper. These are really expensive. So this is an expensive option if you really want to get into like actually doing pastels, or I don't know. I mean, I guess if you wanted to, you could just go for it, but they are not, they're not cheap. They're really dirty right now. Sorry, but they're really nice quality. Just, I mean, incredible like colors, which is why I chose this, especially the landscape set, the plein air landscape set. I love it so much. So these are expensive because there's more pigment. So expensive soft pastels have more pigment and less binder, which is like a glue that keeps them together. Cheaper soft pastels. This is Artist Loft. I got these at Michael's, and they're really cheap, and they're a lot harder. It's more, this is like way more just soft and chalky. They kind of even fall apart sometimes. And these, like, it's just not. They're just harder. So they have a ton more binder in it, or glue, to keep it together, which is why they're not falling apart, which is nice, but you just don't get as like soft and supple of like when you're working, but they still work great. So you can see these, they come in like a great array of colors. They have way bigger sets than this. This is a smaller set. Get some cheap stuff, play around, maybe get one thing at a time, and don't stress out about it. You can make beautiful artwork and have so much fun, especially in like a sketchbook setting. Like if you want to just start an ugly sketchbook, which is what this video is about, you can get the cheap brand of all these things I'm talking about. You don't have to get the expensive stuff to make fun stuff, to have fun, to make an ugly sketchbook. Okay, let's talk about colored pencils. So these are Prismacolor colored pencils. These are great. And then a little note. I don't know if it's in here. Oh yeah, Prismacolor makes these things. They're colorless blenders. And do you guys see that? I need to sharpen this. A little hand sharpener. These are made just for blending colored pencils. If you were going to blend these two colors, I'm not great with colored pencils. I just mess around with them. But that's what a colorless blender is for if you were trying to make it really smooth. Let's talk about this guy. This is liquid frisket. It's by Grumbacher, and I use this, which is a like gum eraser or like a glue or sticky residue eraser. If you guys haven't seen this page of my ugly sketchbook yet, I used a toothbrush to just splatter and drop a bunch of frisket on it. This is ink, and then when the ink was dry, I peeled it all off with this gum eraser, and it made like a crazy sky, like a universe. So that is what this can be used for. It obviously can be used for all sorts of things, but that's how it's used. It's sticky, it gets all over stuff. So just use like a toothbrush or a brush that you don't care about. I also like having a straight edge, which I use a ruler sometimes, but my ruler can be a little bit big. So I have this, which has all different lengths. You can just use like a little ruler. I just don't have one around. Then I have this guy. This is an Artist Loft, cheap one from Michael's too. It's just a bunch of circles, and that can be fun if you're wanting to get kind of abstract but add some shapes. You can grab some stencils. Okay, so the gouache I have is this Art and Soul gouache set, and it's from Amazon. It's not super high quality. It's not super expensive. It's cheap, and there's 18 colors. Gosh. So this is what it looks like. It has this little, this is so messy right now, but it comes with a palette. This is the lid. It just fits right in here, so that's really nice. And I forgot I had all this stuff in here. Anyway, it has two whites, and so don't open this second white until you're out of that white, because you don't need to. You don't need all this mess up in your nice white paint. That's that. Okay, so watercolors. I have this adorable little set, Winsor and Newton. I've had it for a long time, so it's a little jacked up, but it also comes with, which I couldn't find, but it has this little lid that doubles as like, this is like a great travel set. So you can take it off, you can keep your water in here, which is so nice. Oh gosh. And then it actually has a little brush as well, which is so fun. You keep water in here so you can fill up your little cup that I can't find. And then you have your brush with you. This is what it looks like. There's all the little cakes. You know, you can see they're old and like cracking and stuff, and it doesn't matter. You just get them wet and then they're ready to go. This is a little sponge that you can wipe your brush off. You can mix over here. It's a fantastic little fun set, and I just used this for a very long time. I started getting more into watercolors, so I got this giant palette, and this is so gross and messy right now. I've been trying to use it up, use all of the stuff up so I can freshly put all my new colors in. Eventually I'm gonna redo this palette, and maybe I'll make a video about how I do that. But this is Artist Loft too. This is cheap from Michael's, just a big palette, and it closes, and it's fantastic for watercolors. And these are my watercolors. So there's some gouache, random gouache in here, like old gouache that I used a long time ago. But I love Daniel Smith watercolors. I love M. Graham watercolors. And then Winsor and Newton watercolors as well. Where are they? So I have a lot of different colors in here that I've just collected over the years. I'd say if you want to start this route with liquid watercolor, just maybe start with the primaries, get a blue that you like, a yellow that you like, and a red. I found that watercolors, I think because they're diluted so much, the reds just aren't as strong. So if you want a really strong red, a permanent red's a great option. I keep them in this bowl, and then I fill them up when I need to. Okay, so Posca, I don't know. Paint markers. These are so fun, paint pens. I have all different sizes. This is just a giant one, and they're so thick and lovely. They go over all sorts of stuff, like you can see. Goes right over this black pen I did earlier. They're amazing. All different sizes. That's kind of a large, medium, and then there's a really skinny, and then mega big. Super fun. I have just a few different colors that I like to play with. I'm like slowly collecting. They are so fun to play with and really cheap. You should definitely try these out. You should also get a little spray bottle if you don't have one already. If you have this little watercolor, when you open it up and you want to get all of these wet, you would just spray them down and kind of wait for a little bit, and then they get real nice and soaked and ready to use. Spraying like ink or something and making it move around. It's just nice to have one of these on hand. Okay, and on that note, let's talk about inks. I have some inks. I'll show you a few different types. This one's my favorite just because it's a waterproof India ink. I love a waterproof ink because I don't have to worry about smearing, smudging, all that kind of stuff. If you don't want it to be waterproof, you can just get black drawing, like India ink. They make it not, this is not waterproof. And this was $4.95 at my local art store. So that's cheap. This is more expensive. I can't remember how much it is right now, but it's matte, it's waterproof. I love it. I got a bunch of different types of inks. So acrylic ink, I think this one's also, yeah, these are acrylic inks. They're really fun. They also make some shimmery versions. This one's a watercolor ink, cadmium yellow, and that's really fun too. I have a white India ink. These are just a few ideas of things you could play around with inks, but inks are so fun. They're so diverse, and like you could do so many different things. So I'd grab a few. They mix really nicely too. So I would grab a few inks because it's just way too fun to play around with. Okay, and my favorite watercolor brush brand is Princeton. There's a Princeton 6 for an example. This is a select, so I think these were cheaper, size 12, and this is a new liner I haven't used yet. But these are all Princeton, so they're different lines, so they have different prices. They have cheaper ones, more expensive ones, but I really like Princeton brushes. You can just get a pack of really cheap watercolor brushes from Michael's and just go for it. They're totally fine, and you can make beautiful work with cheap brushes. You really can. I also have these Sumi brushes, and this is what I use for ink. They hold so much water or ink. They look really splayed out, but when they're wet, they have a really nice point to them. These were Dick Blick. And then this one, I don't know where I got this one, but it says it's a size 3, and that's a 2 and a 4. That's all I know. But they have a bunch on Amazon. They have a bunch in different stores. They hold so much liquid. So it's fun when you're using ink. They will go for a long time without having to refill. This is something I've used a lot, and I've also had a lot of people ask about. I love my Copic markers. I keep this little thing in here just to test some colors out next to each other, like put it on the page next to wherever I'm gonna add. I love these. So a note about Copic markers. So this is a good example of a normal, just Copic marker. It has a chiseled edge, and then it has a really fine point. This does not have a brush tip. Brush tips are really nice for blending. The type of Copics that have a brush tip are called Copic-sketch. Okay, so I have linked as many as I could find of the colors that I was recommending that I was using in my sketchbook on my Amazon storefront, but sometimes the colors are only available in a normal Copic marker. But I just want all of you to keep in mind the Copic-sketch is the one with the brush tip. That's really nice for blending because you can kind of do these nice flick motion, and then you can come in with like a different color. This one's kind of messed up. This yellow is getting green anyway. Anyway, it's really nice for blending. They're so fun to use. I love them. I have never liked markers in my life until I started using these. They're alcohol based, and that's what makes them blend so nicely. It's not like a normal marker that you used in like elementary school. And then the last thing I can talk about is this ruling pen, but unfortunately I cannot tell you where it's from because my husband made it. But you can look up a video on how to make a ruling pen. This was made out of an old paintbrush and then a sparkling water can, just a part of it that he cut off and put some tape around it. And it works so well. I just dip it in my ink. It's so much fun to play around with. Well, I think that's it, guys. So I hope you liked this video. I hope that you found it helpful. Please let me know if you have any other questions about the Ugly Sketchbook supplies. I hope at least a couple of those things can get you started. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, or you can message me on Instagram. I love talking to you guys and getting back to you. So hope you try it, have fun, stay creative, and just take it one page at a time.